Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fans Talk Pro Wrestling Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Freddie Carlson, and I am once again joined by my good friend Angelo Belli. Say hi to the fans, Angelo.
Hello, everybody.
And today is episode 3C, the conclusion of this three-part series that we have began here on the Fans Talk Pro Wrestling Podcast, where we will conclude our discussion about why we love pro wrestling and what it has meant to us in our lives. Today, Angelo and I will discuss with each other some of our favorite moments and memories of wrestling, some of our fondest things that we get out of wrestling and love about it, and what we look forward to in the future. So, kind of just going to recap what we both spoke about in my episode 3A. I discussed many of my key focal points as a fan, my first memories, my favorite early storylines and events, and the importance of my friends who have really grown, who have become more than just friends because of wrestling, but friends because of genuine interest in each other as having similar interests, but also the importance of fans. And Angelo and I agreed we want to get into talking a little bit more about the fans aspect tonight. Angelo, what is some of your takeaways from what you were able to speak about in your episode 3B?
So basically, it was just like why I feel like not only why I'm interested in the world of wrestling, but I feel like what like attracts me to it, what attracts other people to it, even if they're not, I would say everyday fans, but like even casual fans.
Mm.
Um, why it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things, getting into talking about fans a little bit more, uh, we very much undervalue the importance of the fans. I think, especially now,
Mm-hmm.
in the current situation that all wrestling companies find themselves in. WWE, AEW, and Impact Wrestling are still airing weekly broadcasts without fans. Three different companies with three different series of shows going on, and it's weird. It's different. The aspect of not having a crowd truly takes away, in many respects, the best part of wrestling, and that is the interaction with the crowd. Even if you're not in attendance, watching at home makes you interact because of the crowd's interaction, in my book. And I think that above everything else, not having a crowd really takes away from the speciality of what wrestling is, live entertainment. Yes, they're broadcasting it at home to us and allowing people like us who aren't able to get out of the house in this modern climate um, to be able to see things. But I just, from a personal perspective, as being a fan who's been in the crowd so many times at some of the biggest and most important shows of the year, and of all time, I guess you could say, in a grander scheme, it really, truly is something special to be a part of that crowd. Wouldn't you say?
Oh no, definitely without a doubt, it is something to be a part of that crowd. And to be honest, everything that's going on now, with all the live events and stuff, it's very weird just seeing the two or four competitors in that ring with the referee, but no crowd in attendance. Because the second that they pull off a big move, you could literally hear the announcers like with an echo of saying, "Oh my God," like
Yeah.
them doing that. It's very weird, instead of hearing the crowd like roar and stuff like that with big pops.
Uh huh.
So it's definitely I don't want to say it's disappointing, but at the same time it's upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, it is disappointing because we love wrestling for what it normally is in a normal circumstance, a live crowd, in-ring competitors, the referee, the announcers, the ring announcer, everybody involved, even to the most minute detail, makes something so special take place. And without it, and without one of those major aspects, it really takes away from it. Um, but also, in a more general sense, I think it not a general sense, but in a different sense, I should say, it allows the superstars a new challenge. How are they going to entertain the people watching at home without having a live crowd to feed off of, to rely on, to provide the crowd the match with its special series of with its special substance, so to speak. And I believe that it's been a tough challenge, and they're doing their best, and it's never going to be quite the same without a crowd. but the dedication that some of these guys, and I mean, let's be honest, at least when you refer to WWE, there's been a specific group of people who have been really holding down the fort for the better part of the last 2 months or so since they had to switch to this new modern format. I mean, they got the triumvirate of Andrade, Austin Theory, and Angel Garza with Zelina Vega over on Raw. You've got Daniel Bryan and Drew Gulak, Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Otis, and Dolph Ziggler. These guys who have been putting in the work and trying to entertain people at home week to week, every single time they go on screen, because of the difference in the situation. You know, and it's not taken away from anybody else, but they're truly, and I know I'm missing a bunch of names who have been there every single week and who have been giving it everything they have. You know, Bayley and Sasha Banks, pretty much the entire NXT division roster. You know, I can go on and on. But the other thing too, and then I want to kind of, I don't want to segue away from the point of fans just yet. This is allowing younger and newer guys to really get an opportunity. Some of these NXT guys, like this week on Raw, Brendan Vink and Shane Thorne defeated Ricochet and Cedric Alexander in a tag team match. Yeah. If this were a regular episode of Monday Night Raw where they were traveling the globe, first of all, Vink and Thorne would not even be on Raw. Second of all, they would not be beating two main roster established stars in Alexander and Ricochet. And now I'm using established loosely because we all know how little those two have been given on the main roster since their call-ups, especially Ricochet losing to Brock Lesnar like he did in Saudi Arabia earlier this year. Besides the point. Getting back to fans, as I mentioned in my video, and Angelo and I have both mentioned here already in this episode, we've both been a part of some very big and interesting crowds over the years. I've been to 3 SummerSlams, a WrestleMania, Money in the Bank, Monday Night Raw, countless live events, and even a couple of indie shows, and an NXT takeover to add that to the list. And I have seen some really crazy things. I've heard some crazy chants, but nothing quite tops. For me, there's 2. I'll tell one that I witnessed in person, and then I'll let Angelo tell the other. SummerSlam 2017, Sheamus and Cesaro, The Bar, were defending the Raw Tag Team Championships against Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, who had recently reunited after years of being apart. And that was the night of the infamous beach ball situation, when in the lower stands of the arena, a bunch of fans were hitting around a beach ball that someone had snuck in, and Cesaro literally ran from his corner, and he dead jumped the guardrail like it was a hurdle, grabbed the beach ball, and then ripped it to shreds. And let me tell you, that was one of the most amazingly hilarious things I have ever seen in person. And the crowd, while we booed, we popped because it was hilarious and it was fantastic. So to me, that's just one instance. And then Angelo, why don't you tell everybody the story of when we went to WrestleMania, WrestleMania 35, MetLife Stadium, April of 2019. We had a fan in front of us who was so bored with the Triple H Batista match that he entertained the whole crowd near us. Go ahead.
Oh, definitely. So it was Triple H and Batista, and if I remember correctly, Triple H and Batista were fighting over the announce table. And what's that part on top called? Like the
hood,
the guard or whatever.
The hood. I think it's called the hood.
That little piece, they freaking ripped it off, and they were fighting on top, and we just looked up at the jumbotron, and the guy in front of us actually just like really looked in close enough, and he saw a pencil.
Oh,
and
man!
Sorry if I laughed during this, because this was the craziest thing that I've seen probably in any wrestling event. And he sees it, and he just gets up out of his chair, and he goes, "Grab the pencil! Stab him in the eye!"
Yeah, and to give a little bit more of what ends up going on, so he was, I think he was already, I don't think he was interested in the match to begin with. I personally was excited for it. It did go on a little too long, but that's a different discussion. And so yeah, that's going on, and then they're fighting on the table for probably at least a couple minutes. And
3 or 4.
At or around the table before they went back into the ring. And he was doing it, he said it so many times, I'm pretty sure that at least in our little area up in the upper decks of the arena started chanting, "Get the pencil." It was the greatest moment because it was just a bunch of wrestling fans all in unison in the stupidest thing you'll ever see or hear, but the most fun. And to me, that's what pro wrestling's all about. I mean, you gotta have fun with it. If you're the type of person who doesn't like to sit there and just try to enjoy it for what it is and try to make something fun of it, then you're not doing the right thing. You're not taking wrestling the way that you should, in my opinion. Wrestling is meant to be this thing that entertains everybody, and it entertains you from an emotional way, in a physical way, sometimes in a spiritual way. You can connect in so many different varieties of ways, and in my book, stuff like that is the definition of it. And I mean, I could probably list a whole bunch of memories. I have my best friend Alaric when we went to SummerSlam in 2017, the same night as the Beach Ball
Mania.
Yes, the same night as Beach Ball Mania. What's it called? We had Braun Strowman was in the main event, and he came out first, and Alaric had never heard Braun's theme song before, and he was talking to me, and then all of a sudden Braun hits, and he literally jumped and grabbed me. I was like, Alaric, that's Braun Strowman's music, and he was laughing so hard. That was unbelievable. And it's stuff like that that really makes wrestling special to me, is to create memories and moments that I can remember. What is it now, 2.5, almost 3 years later, and I can think back and say, wow, we had a moment like that. That was a night that I will never forget for many reasons. That was a weekend I'll never forget, because I was at NXT TakeOver the night before Adam Cole's debut. Everybody was hyped. Everybody had that feeling. You could just have, and Angelo, you can attest to this. There's that buzz in the air if something special is going to happen, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And we were sitting there, and I was there with a couple of my friends, and my friend Hank was telling me all about how he had a good feeling that this was the night Adam Cole was going to debut in WWE, and the rumors and all that. And, you know, the whole show goes by. He's not sitting at ringside like NXT. He'll sometimes have a big name debut by just be sitting at ringside. You know, he didn't get involved in anything. And then all of a sudden, Drew McIntyre is celebrating a championship victory over Bobby Roode. And Hank spots a man running through the crowd towards the ring. And all of a sudden, Adam Cole, baby, is in WWE. And that's the crowd, just the fever pitch rose in a heartbeat. Your heart beats once, and the crowd is on their feet screaming. Adam Cole is in the ring, and oh my goodness, there's nothing quite like something like that.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah, there's little else to say about a moment like that. Or I still, the Undertaker's entrance, I've only been lucky enough to witness it in person once, and it was at SummerSlam 2015 when he wrestled Brock Lesnar. And I mentioned it in my video, looking over at my dad and seeing a big smile on his face from ear to ear. and me too. I mean, let me tell you right now, I don't know how he walked through those flames. Those things shot up, and I felt the heat halfway across the arena. But, you know, it was just an unreal moment. You know, you love wrestling like we do so much, and we talk about how much we love it, but those are the moments that you cherish and you keep with you despite everything else in this world, I would think.
Oh yeah, no, and also going with that, I don't remember if you talked about it in your video, but I know I brought it up briefly. When Elias was having his performance, and my brother actually, when he came with us, he was going to the bathroom, and he passed by like the merch table, and he saw a bunch of John Cena merch. And he goes, wait a minute, but Cena's on the card. And when he came back, he goes, oh, I think he's going to come out later on. And sure enough, Elias is doing his spiel. And then you see the Titantron, and you see the thing about Babe Ruth.
Oh, my goodness.
And then right away you hear, you think you're untouchable? And then the whole crowd in unison.
That pop, I'm telling you. That night was filled with pops. I mean, we were popping a lot for stuff.
I just got goosebumps just talking about it. Like,
I could probably list at least 5 different times when that crowd popped so loud that I was like genuinely surprised at how loud it was. When Hawkins and Ryder won the Raw Tag Team titles in the kickoff show. When Seth Rollins beat Brock Lesnar in about 6 minutes to win the WWE Universal title. The whole thing with Cena when he came out. Becky Lynch's big win at the end of the night. And of course, Kofi Mania. I mean, let's be
Oh
honest.
yeah.
Kofi Mania may have been the greatest thing I have ever witnessed in my life. That crowd was so hot. We wanted Kofi to win so bad, and when he finally did, it was the greatest because he earned it, and it was an unbelievable moment. And again, we could talk moments all day. And I kind of want to segue into talking about a different type of moment. I've been a wrestling fan since 2008, since I was just before my 8th birthday. Angelo, you mentioned in your video since you were probably about 5 years old, so about a couple years before that. So we've been wrestling fans for over half of our lives. We've experienced a lot live, watching it on TV, on pay-per-view, plus a multitude of options to go back on and rewatch on the network and DVDs and all the other things that we have the freedom to go and watch. One thing that I wanted to talk about, and it's kind of hard to do on the spot, but I thought of it just now.
Okay.
What is the one, if you had to pick one moment from your entire memory of watching wrestling live, whether it was in person, in the arena, on TV, on pay-per-view, if you had to pick one moment that was just the best in your memory, what would it be?
You really stumped me on this one, bro.
I have one. I know what it is, and I mentioned it in my video. And for me, it's a very specific moment. It's important in the history of Jeff Hardy's career.
Okay.
But if you think about big championship wins in the history of the WWE, this isn't the first one that pops into many people's mind. You'll think of Mankind beating The Rock, Austin beating Michaels, Cena beating JBL, but I always go back to Armageddon 2008, the last pay-per-view of the year, the culmination of a near year-long journey of Jeff Hardy to finally become the WWE champion. For those of you who don't remember, it was Armageddon 2007, a full year before, when Jeff Hardy defeated Triple H in a one-on-one match to determine the number one contender for the WWE Championship. That opportunity for Jeff would come at the Royal Rumble in 2008, which Jeff would lose. Jeff would also go on to lose the 2008 Raw Elimination Chamber match at No Way Out, being the last man eliminated by Triple H. Then, Jeff Hardy was slated to be in and win the 2008 Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania. However, his wellness policy suspension caused him to be suspended for 60 days. He was removed from the match. He dropped the Intercontinental Championship, and subsequently that win went to CM Punk in starting his rise to stardom in the WWE. Hardy was out for a few months. He comes back. He works the mid-card for a bit. By September, he's in the championship scramble for the WWE Championship against 4 other men. Then two consecutive matches against Triple H for the title at No Mercy and Cyber Sunday 2008. All these opportunities end up being failed opportunities for Jeff, which end up becoming supposed to culminate in Survivor Series, but then he's assaulted in the stairwell of his hotel, and so Edge comes back and wins it. And so finally, after 12 full months, Jeff Hardy wins the WWE Championship at Armageddon 2008. Hardy was my first favorite superstar. From the first time I watched him compete and I saw him wrestle, I was like, this guy is unfreaking believable. It was the first match of his that I watched was against John Cena, and shortly thereafter I watched his match from the night before that against Umaga in a Falls Count Anywhere match where he swantoned off of a trailer in the parking lot. And from those moments on, I loved Jeff, and I was so enthralled in his journey and his rise to the top. And finally seeing him reach that mountain, albeit for a very short period of time, he only had a 38 or 42 day reign or somewhere in that range of about 5 or 6 weeks. And yeah, Jeff was that to me sticks out as the earliest moment as well as the most important moment in my time as a wrestling fan, because from then on I was like, okay, this is what I love and nothing is going to stop it or change it. And despite everything I've been through in life, here we are 10 years plus later now. It's 2020 and that memory is a distant one in the past, and here we are. So I know I kind of gave a long and drawn out version of mine, but Angelo, I was trying to also give you a little time to think. What's one? Maybe not even the most important, but what's one that you can pick out from all the years of watching wrestling?
So one thing that I really thoroughly enjoyed was when CM Punk won the championship from Cena at Money in the Bank,
Yes.
and his contract was up at midnight. He left with the title, and then came back. I don't even remember how long it was until he came back, and Cena was champion after defeating Rey Mysterio on that
It
Monday
was
night
eight
episode of
days.
Raw.
It was 8 days. If I have one complaint about it is that it was only 8 days he was gone. They tried to rush him back for SummerSlam, and they
Yeah.
had him rush back after 8 days. Personally, I feel like they should have waited at least a month, but continue.
Yeah, no, so it was that, and then, having Cena stand on top of the turnbuckle with it, and then CM Punk's theme hit, and then him coming out and, raising his title even higher, that was just a moment in my, I don't even know what to call it, my experience with wrestling that was like, oh my god, holy crap, this is why I love it. Because it's, now it's true competition, and I'm like, alright, even though I love Cena, now CM Punk is coming back.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And it was blurring the lines between reality and kayfabe because, you didn't know when Punk left if he was actually going to go. Because you really wouldn't expect Vince to put the title on a guy who's leaving the company, but kayfabe was still kind of in play at the time. It wasn't totally shattered with social media like it is today.
right.
And so it was good TV. It was good storytelling. And as I said, my biggest gripe with that is that it was only 8 days. He won the title at Money in the Bank on Sunday, whatever day in July that was. The next night on Raw, they had an 8-man tournament to determine the new champion, with the finals taking place the following week. Rey Mysterio versus The Miz. Mysterio won the championship 8 days after Punk had won his. Of course, John Cena has to waltz his way in and get himself a title match, so Rey Mysterio is clocked in at one of the shortest reigns in WWE Championship history, and he ends up losing it to Cena. Cena celebrating with another WWE Championship, one of his 16 that he's had, and CM Punk comes out to Cult of Personality for the first time. Great decision to change his theme song to that.
Oh, definitely.
And then they start the whole build to SummerSlam, and the Summer of Punk was on its way to its ultimate culmination, albeit a little bit of a letdown in the culmination of it all, where he beats Cena, then Del Rio cashes in, and then
because of Nash, right? That's what it was, right? Nash interfered that night.
Oh man, there was so many weird aspects to what was going on there. Kevin Nash, in 2011, got involved in the WWE Championship picture, costing CM Punk the title, but Punk never got his revenge on Nash, as far as I remember, because he ended up facing Triple H at the next pay-per-view. Nash left TV for a while, then all of a sudden Nash comes back and has a big match with Triple H, where it was a ladder match, but the sledgehammer was hanging above the ring at TLC 2011.
Yeah.
And so Punk never gets his revenge on Nash. Del Rio walks out with the title, and Cena's just kind of like the only one who ended up reaping any reward, because a month later, Cena beats Del Rio at Night of Champions 2011 to win the title back. Yeah. So, in all that, Punk loses his championship, doesn't get revenge on the guy who cost him the championship, and doesn't win his title back for another 3 months. And until the Survivor Series at MSG in 2011. Which was and that win was overshadowed by guess who? John Cena and The Rock, who main evented that show against the Awesome Truth.
Yeah. No, my brother was there that night, and he was saying when Punk won, the whole crowd just got up and was like, literally half of the crowd was giving a standing ovation.
He had Howard Finkel introduce him and announce his victory. The now late great Howard Finkel, God rest his soul, just passed away last month. Like, Howard Finkel, that's how you know you've made it, when the Fink introduces you. Everyone always said that. I would have paid good money to have the Fink introduce me if I ever become a wrestler one day. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So the Summer of Punk and that moment at Money in the Bank, I remember being so on the edge of my seat watching that match live, and I could not believe when Punk actually won. And the ensuing aftermath may not have been the best, but you know what? You take what you can get when you're a wrestling fan, and you take that particular moment with the the Money in the Bank victory over Cena, and you run with it, because that was an unbelievable moment and an unbelievable memory for many people like us, because that blur of the lines was perfect. So yeah, we've talked a lot about the importance of fans and some of our favorite memories of as being in the crowd and watching on TV. And I think above all else, when it comes down to it, as we begin to wrap it up here, we have so much to be thankful for with professional wrestling. These guys and girls go out there, they put their lives on the line, and they risk a lot of things to entertain us and to also live their dream. And so it's a very nice combination of things. And we could sit here all day and talk about how many different aspects are important, and how many things that shape it, and why they're so important, and why they shape it. But I think above all else, the fans, their support of the superstars, their constant interaction with the show, whether it be from their home on social media these days, or when live crowds are able to return in the future. To me, having that is always going to be the biggest and most important part of the wrestling business, and I always like to think that it will remain that way for years to come. Angelo, any closing thoughts or remarks you'd like to add before we wrap it up tonight?
No, I definitely agree with what you just said. Like, I feel like what goes on in that ring revolves around the way that the crowd either approves or disapproves of everything. Because that's how I personally feel. How the writers and everybody behind the scenes, that's how they figure out what's next for the stars. So definitely, if we ever get the chance to soon enough go to a wrestling event, I feel like that's something that's gonna probably help the creative a little bit more and stuff. So hopefully that's gonna lead to more big matches and more big debuts and more title wins and whatever else is down the line.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to keep everything. You got to adapt with the times and change accordingly, but you also need to keep the most key aspects. And to me, the key aspects: keep the crowd entertained, keep them on the edge of their seat, and make sure that they're enjoying themselves, both at home and on TV. That's what's and live. That's what's most important. So yeah, this concludes the third and final part of the episode 3 series, discussing Angelo and I's favorite moments in wrestling, why we love the business, and all the various topics that the two of us have discussed over the past 3 episodes. We thank you for tuning in over the last several parts, and for continuing to choose us as your podcast listening source. Tune in next time, as Angelo and I will be going back to ranking, as we will be ranking our top 10 WWE and professional wrestling tag teams of all time. It's going to be a good one. Angelo and I have been talking a lot of great names, interesting number ones for both sides, and I'm sure it will be an interesting discussion, and we will see you when that time comes. Thank you, everybody. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and have a very wonderful rest of your day.